Everyone wants to do an MBA. Most of these students would want to go on and pursue an MBA degree from overseas.
MBA is a professional degree, right? There are CFOs, CEOs in those classes, right? Won't be able to understand the realistic approach towards the economy. There are certain countries who take these kind of students.
And I do want to go on and pursue an MBA overseas, but I've got zero experience. Do make a note of this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Insight session organized by ETA Education Services. In these sessions, we aim to help students know more about their overseas education journey and clear any and every myth that they hold. We today have an industry savant with us, Mrs. Fiona Hearn-Vashisht, and we intend to tackle one of the most challenging things, one of the things that is omniscient. Everyone asks a question about an MBA degree, be it an engineer, be it a normal graduate. Almost everyone wants to do an MBA. Of course, this is understood because it's one professional degree that kind of goes on and takes you to your dreamland. Now, because we've got Mrs. Hearn with us, who holds more than 16 years of experience under her belt. So let's go on, welcome her to the session, and let's begin with things. Madam, first of all, we really like to thank you for being here, for taking the time out and taking the initiative to help the students at ETA and all across know more about their overseas education journey. So, first thing, over to you, madam.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Mr. Vashisht. I hope that we'll be able to take up certain questions and certain areas of concern related to the overseas education process and also the MBA that we are here to discuss about.
In fact, madam, that's the idea, to cater to every question, every doubt that a student has. Now, so a lot of students come to us and a lot of students have a number of queries related to overseas education. But one thing that we've noticed is that most of these students would want to go on and pursue an MBA degree from overseas. Of course, we've got an exam called CAT in India. We've got a number of top-notch institutions like the IIMs, like ISB, and to name a lot more. But we also have a huge category who prefers doing an MBA from overseas. However, we noticed that they aren't really very clear about the process that entails, plus the kind of things that they require to do an MBA.
Right.
So the very first question, madam, I'm pretty sorry, you would find this as a very basic and stupid question. But the question is, I mean, of all the lot that we have, of the engineers that we have, of the B school graduates that we have, who actually is the right candidate to pursue an MBA?
Right. Thank you so much for that question. I think many students and candidates do ask us that question, whether we are ready for an MBA. Do we actually go in for an MBA or not? So the answer to this question is that all those people who have a certain amount of experience in their own industry, be it the technical side, be it the management side, the finance side as well, they are all eligible to apply for an MBA because an MBA is a professional degree, right? So a person who wants to upgrade their skill set or move horizontally or laterally in their own industry or in the company that they're already working at, so an MBA for them is the most suitable option at this time to grow in their career. So it kind of catapults their career to another level.
Great, thank you so much. But all right, so when you say that people who are from the industry, people who've already worked a little, they become one of the ideal candidates. So I have this question, madam. A lot of students who have just graduated, and here I also mean engineers, not just B school graduates, when they want to pursue an MBA, and these are mostly freshers. Of course, there are certain students with experience as well. But when one has to pursue an MBA overseas, is it mandatory to have work experience? And if yes, what sort of work experience is actually looked of?
Okay. So when we compare, say, the Indian B schools and the B schools at a global level, the difference here is that here in India, people with, some sort of experience, say up to 6 months or even a year, or even with zero experience can apply for an MBA. But, when you ask people in the job market or the companies, whom do they prefer? They would generally prefer people with some sort of work experience, and then they back it with an MBA. So the reason here for the global B schools to take in people with experience, the reason here is because they want those people to add something to the classrooms as well. There are a lot of people with, say, 10 years average experience in their industry. There are CFOs, CEOs in those classes, right? So to be able to give to the classes, to be able to contribute to the sessions as well, you have to have some sort of experience. Otherwise, students won't be able to speak there. They won't be able to understand the realistic approach towards the economy and the industry. So they should have some experience. So at least a 2 year of experience, and the experience should actually be at a managerial level if you can actually have that. And even those students where they have a technologically based experience, even they can apply. So there are certain countries who take these kind of students with technology based experience, and then the others, like say the European countries, would prefer people where they've led a team, where they've strategized,
Right.
and they've actually made decisions for the company for them to grow. So yeah, that's basically it for these students.
Oh, thank you so much. The freshers there, do make a note of this point. That's a wonderful point. But, madam, please forgive my curiosity. I would just want to ask one thing. Uh, so, imagine I do want to go on and pursue an MBA overseas, but I've got zero experience. I am a fresher. Do I stand any chance?
Okay, so when we talk about the competition part of it, right? So when we talk about global B schools or even Indians B schools, there are a lot of people who have in the industry experience, and they have an interview that the AdCom takes. So when they
Hmm.
take an interview and they ask certain questions, say for example, you've led a team, and you made certain decisions, and how did you make them follow certain decisions that you made? They would practically have no idea what to say, right? So
Uh,
here experience does matter, but of course for those students who do not have experience, there are other options that they can actually look at.
what sort of options do they have?
Those options are either an MIM, which is a master's in management, or specialized degrees related to say finance or the corporate finance, or maybe something to do with pure management as well, where they can take electives. So yeah, based on that, they can apply for those kind of
They
options.
do have
Yes.
options. All right, fair enough. This is also one curious thing that I'd want to ask.
Yeah.
So, when you say that an MBA, because we understand that even if a student applies to, say, for example, the top-notch IIMs or ISB in our country,
Hmm.
they still need a wonderful profile because,
Right.
as you rightly said, there's a lot of competition. There are people with 10 years of experience.
Hmm.
So, my question is this: do you need something called a better profile? And if yes, what exactly is a better profile for an MBA candidate?
Right. So when we look at the global level or the scenario that there is for the admissions, the AdComs don't only look at, say, the scores. So for example, you have a CGPA, a wonderful CGPA, say, of 8 and above, right? That is not the only thing that adds to the entire profile. So what one needs would be certain things which are extra. So
Okay.
one is the CGPA, which is very, very important, of course, because the top ranked universities would require a certain CGPA, a benchmark that they want students to be at.
Hmm.
Then, of course, you also have the work experience, which we've already discussed. Apart from that, the students have to curate excellent essays, which is a part and parcel of the admissions process. So, even students who want to go in for ISB, for example, in India, even there you have to write personal statements and essays, and even certain SOPs as well. So for there as well, they have certain essays which they have to curate, write well. They have to pour their heart out there and try to let the AdComs know the kind of people they are, professionally and personally as well. So that is one. The second, of course, would be the interviews that they have. So they have a round of interviews for separate candidates. So once their profile has been accepted, they are sent an invite for an admission interview. So in the interviews as well, they have a chance to prove themselves, what they haven't been able to do via the personal statements or say the
Right.
essays as well. So there they ask questions related to your profession. They also ask questions related to the kind of person you are. Then apart from that, you have, say, a lot of companies where students work. They have the CSR, which they follow, the corporate
Yes.
social responsibility. So through that, if they've done some kind of community service, given back to the community, that also helps, because once they are a part of the student committee there, they can actually add to that as well. Then if they have any ECAs, that's extracurricular extracurricular stuff that they've done, they can actually add that as well. So all this kind of makes up for the entire profile. And let's not forget the test scores. So for all the B schools abroad, you need to take a GMAT or a GRE, and you need to get a good score there as well.
Yes, that's the monster that almost everyone is
Yeah.
worried about. Did I call you a savant initially? I did, and wasn't I right about that? Great. So, madam, while you did go on and talk about this idea, so of course, when students come to us, they understand this idea that tests become an important part of the entire process. And GMAT particularly is something that they have to deal with, right? So, a very curious question that I promise you every student would ask me would be this: while they want to apply for an MBA degree overseas, what GMAT score should they have? I mean, at times they come up to me and they ask me whether a 600 would work for their admission. At times they ask me, do they need a perfect 805 to secure an admission? According to you, what do you think is the perfect score that a student needs?
Okay. So when
And
we
I'm very sorry. I also have another curious question. You must have thought that I just cut you there. But there's another example, GRE, madam. We'd also want to know if GRE is also accepted for an
Right,
MBA
right.
degree.
All right. So when we talk about scores, I think first I'll have to answer the latter part of the question. Both GMAT and GRE are acceptable for admissions
Oh,
in B
wonderful.
schools. And GMAT, of course, was the first test which was acceptable, and it is acceptable everywhere. Sometimes, of course, we need to check whether certain B schools in Europe would accept a GRE as well. And all those engineers, or people from non-business backgrounds, if they haven't decided whether they want to go in for an MBA or an MIM, I would suggest them to take a GRE so that they have some options open as well.
Oh, you just read my mind. I wanted to
Right.
ask you this. While the universities may accept either GMAT or GRE, as a layman, what test should I opt for? Should it be GRE? Is it easier, or should it be GMAT? I don't know.
I think both tests are at the same level as I suggested earlier. But people who haven't decided as of now for the kind of program they want to go in for and whether their profile is eligible or not, they should take a GRE. But a GMAT is always preferred because they have more business related, data related questions in the verbal part of it, where they test the knowledge of the student as per the decision making skills and strategizing part of it as well. So GMAT would kind of be above the GRE. So
So is that the reason why GMAT also has a data insight section?
yes, of
while
course,
GRE does
of
not?
course it does.
Okay.
So that is why we want students to first decide the kind of program they want to go in for and then prepare for the test. Now, coming back to the former question that you had asked about the scores that are required for students to be able to apply to B schools. So when we talk about the GMAT, a score of say 650 to 700 shall suffice when you talk about the latest edition that is there, the Focus edition. And if somebody has already taken that old GMAT, then 700 plus would be a good score as well. So if you're aiming at, say, mediocre to top-notch universities, then 650 to 7 would be a good option. GRE, somebody, if they're taking a GRE, should have somewhere around 320 plus. So that's the score that's required.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much for those insights, madam. I also have one more thing to ask you. So
Right.
we know that in India, mostly the duration of an MBA course is 2 years. Is it the same overseas as well?
To that, there are different countries with different duration of the MBA. So in India, yes, we have most of the master's program, including the professional ones, which are of a duration of 2 years. So when we talk about abroad, there are plenty of countries. So if you talk about the US, we'll have, say, a duration of 2 years for an MBA. If we talk about European countries, including the UK, there'll be around a year duration for an MBA.
Oh, like that?
Yes. But yes, currently there are certain schools in the US as well who want to fast track their MBA. So they also have options where they can do it within 1.5 years or 1 year as well.
Oh, all right. So
Yes.
if I understand it right, you have different durations of an MBA overseas, right? But it should be the 2 year MBA. That's the perfect thing, right? Why would one opt for a 1 year MBA?
That is a fallacy, actually. A lot of students think that a 2 year MBA would give them more and 1 year MBA would give them less. That's not actually the point. The point here is anybody who is from a non-business background would generally go in for a 2 year MBA to have more focus on the business modules, learn more about how a business works, or how an enterprise takes decisions to make better strategies and stuff like that. So that is something where a student with non-business background can go in for a 2 year program. Now, when we talk about those people, like I had mentioned, people with 10 years of work experience in the industry, they've been managing a lot of companies, a lot of teams, So when they have such a lot of experience, they don't want to go in for a 2 year MBA. They already have that experience. So they would want to go in for a 1 year MBA. So they'll pick European countries, for example, complete their MBA, and then, of course, hop on to their current work that they're already in.
Oh, wow. That was well explained, madam. Thank you. So now I understand. probably a person who's not from the background can
Right.
go for a 2-year MBA, but somebody who's already well experienced should opt
Yes.
for a 1-year MBA. I mean, it's their
Yes.
choice, of course.
Right.
All right. There's just one more thing that I want to ask. So I'm sure that this MBA overseas must be an expensive deal, right? And when you talk about a 2-year MBA or 1-year MBA, is there any difference in the fee? In fact, what is the kind of fee structure for an MBA abroad?
All right. So yes, of course, it amounts to a lot. When we talk about an MBA abroad, the kind of tuition fees that we're talking about, say for the North American countries, would be somewhere around, say, up to 80 lakhs. It might also go up to a crore if you're talking about the top-notch
Well,
universities
that's
like
expensive for some.
Harvard or Stanford. But of course, if you talk about European countries, it would be somewhere around, say, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs, depending on the duration of the program, which is 1 year, of course. So again, that is another reason why people opt for a 1-year MBA, so that they can actually take care of the funding aspect. And people who want to also build their network, they go in for 2-year MBAs as well. So the better network they have, the better options they'll have post an MBA.
All right. That's an expensive deal, man. Brings me to a question. I'm sure that you'd laugh at me like on this question, but in that case, why shouldn't I do an MBA from India? Why do I have to even bother going abroad and doing an MBA from there?
Right. So that's the difference there as well. When we talk about students who want to go in for an MBA, who've been working with, say, MNCs, good companies here, maybe the big four in India, right? So they understand the difference there. Once they go abroad for an MBA, they have that kind of global exposure there. And the networking that I told you about, that
Mhm.
actually works wonders for them, because they have options to work in different countries as well, because they have a good networking. The second is, if they're already there in a current company and they'll be going back after an MBA, the more network they have, the more business they can actually generate for their current business. So that is another option. And the second thing, of course, is yes, there is a big difference in the cost, but it adds more to your profile. So when you have to apply at good MNCs, even top Indian companies here in India itself, and we know that Indian companies are doing a lot of business with other countries. So they would like somebody with that kind of experience to head their teams who are looking into foreign trade. So that's your answer there.
All right, so I understand the idea. Maybe what I also understand is that we've got wonderful universities, wonderful colleges in India as well. To name a few, of course, we've got the IMABC, we've got ISB as well, and they, of course, are in the top 100 in
Yes.
the Financial Times.
We've forgotten XLRI. That's also there.
Sorry, we've got an XLRI, and I understand they're in the top 100 in the Financial Times ranking, right?
Right.
But I also understand your point that if somebody's really got to go on and make that move, it becomes imperative at times to go on and opt for an overseas education.
Yes.
And I also understand that new culture would go on and add a lot to my
Yes.
life as well, which
True.
is a wonderful thing. Great, thank you so much. Which brings me to this idea, madam. You said that US would be one country wherein an MBA might just go on and cost me like up to a crore as
Yes.
well.
Right.
And you said that certain European countries would go on and charge me less for the same thing. And the other idea is that 1-year MBA is of a different cost, 2-year is of a different cost altogether. So what I want to ask is, irrespective of the cost, which countries are better for an MBA degree?
Okay. So here, again, in my past so many years of experience, we've
Mhm.
had a lot of students come up to me and ask which country is the best one for an MBA. My answer would always be, don't look at a country for an MBA. You look at the B school for an MBA. So when you talk about countries, never pick countries, always pick a B school. So we have to generally check which kind of B schools would take in their profiles. What are their requirements, right? If they're looking for, say, a cheaper option, then of course Europe is the way to go. But no specific country in Europe. You have amazing B schools, say in France, in Italy, even in Germany as well. So if you talk about, say, INSEAD, if you talk about Spain, you have IESE, right? So you have amazing B schools there. And if you talk about US, of course, you have good B schools there, Harvard, Stanford, Chicago Booth, Kepler, a lot of them. So here we should not look at countries, we have to look at profiles, and we have to see what their interest is and what specializations do these B schools offer, because certain B schools offer certain specializations and other B schools offer more specializations according to their experience.
Great. That was very well explained, madam. While talking to you, I just have had like a barrage of texts coming to me from one of my own students. And so he's already opting for the US and he's going for an MBA program. And because I've given him that task, he's particularly sent me text saying that he's finding it pretty difficult to write these things called MBA essays. Can you also help our students understand a bit about what these MBA essays are? What entails them and how important are they?
All right. MBA essays are important. They are an important aspect of your entire application because it showcases the kind of person you are professionally and personally. But in my experience, the kind of essay topics that are given there, the prompts that the B schools have, they are more focused on knowing the person because you also have interviews, right? So there is, it's during the interviews you have more options of explaining the professional side of you. Now, when we talk about the essays, there are certain top-notch B schools who ask, list 25 very important points or interesting points about your character. So you have to list out those 25 points, which nobody knows. So they'll kind of come to know the kind of person you are. Then they have some kind of question where they ask you about the diversity that you belong to. So have you helped somebody who's from a different background? And if you have, how has it actually impacted the person? So these kind of essays are pretty important, and take help from your advisors as well because they can guide you well, and then go ahead and draft them.
Great. Thank you so much, madam, for answering that prompt question as well. I'm sure that we've covered a lot of questions there, but I'm also sure that a lot of you would have a number of questions related to either your profile or a specific course that you'd want to go on and cater to. Um, Today's podcast, we'll stop it right there. We've already taken a lot of time and we've tried answering a lot of questions as well. Though I would like to ask all the listeners and all the viewers that if you have any questions, if you have any doubts related to your overseas education journey, do go on and mention that doubt or question in the comments. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And any and every query that you have, feel free to go on and ask us a question. Also, if there's a very specific topic that you want us to go on and cover, feel free to go on and let us know about that. For the rest, madam, I'd really like to appreciate this time that you've given me and, of course, the detail of answers that you've shared with us. This, trust me, would go a long way in helping our students decide on their MBA journey overseas. Once again, thank you so much, madam. And thank you all the people for listening to us. All of you, have a wonderful day from ETA Education Services.